This is the Real Life Real Estate Investing Show, where we talk about real life real estate situations, but we bring you real life real estate solutions. As you can tell, we had a real life real estate situation with the technology. Now we were able to get a real life real estate solution. So I have with me my guest, and I'm gonna be honest, man. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say this live. For anybody else that would come on this show that would probably say something about it or hear me say this, that's okay. Get out your feelings. But I will say that Ken Igwe is one of my favorite lenders in the business. I mean, from professionalism, from integrity, from just authenticity. Did I say that word right?
Hey, it's good. We know what you mean. No, you're perfect.
It's the authentic man, authentic brother, round and round and through. So thank you again for being with us today. And I know you're going to share some absolute wisdom with us today. And I just want to get into it, man. I have your bio here, but I always say when folks come on that I know, I think reading from their information doesn't do them the justice that they deserve. Mm-hmm. I mean, I always tell folks that you're a Harvard graduate, and all that, They can probably tell that from talking to you, but most people don't look at us and think things like that. So I definitely want to give you accolades for that. But tell the folks who you are, man, and what you got going on currently.
Well, sure. Thank you. First and foremost, thank you for having me, man. I'm excited to kind of share some stuff with you guys today. I've known you for a while, man. I just love to see your growth. And I love to see what's been going on, especially in the market, and also the things that you're doing as well. So, guys, just very briefly, a little bit about me. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. Came here in '96. Proud graduate of Morehouse College, Georgia Tech, and also got a master's degree at Harvard University. Former investment banker. Left investment banking because I loved investment banking, just wasn't a fan of the people I was working around. I couldn't hang around people like Glenn. There aren't a lot of people in investment banking that have his personality. It's very dry. It's very just, a lot of this stuff as well. So we started Baker Collins in 2015, a partner of mine, and we realized that we could really offer a lot of value to investors. And as far as especially showing individuals how to access the capital markets, because prior to a lot of people are essentially doing a Google search as to how to find private money, hard money. And that's just not the best way to go about doing things. It's good to just kind of have a scenario or work with someone who really understands how to structure deals and how to make things work, because every deal is different. Some people may say fix and flip deals or cookie cutter or rental loans or cookie cutter, but every deal has its own peculiar traits. And we really understand that. We just wanted to make sure that people understood that as well. And so we love what we do. To kind of even give a little about Baker Collins, I know, Glenn, you've shared this with folks. We're a private lending group here in Atlanta. We finance residential as well as commercial real estate projects. On the residential side, fix and flips, new construction, rental loans, and lines of credit for folks. On the commercial side, it really runs the gamut. So, that's just a little bit about me and, of course, the company as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, great stuff, man. Great stuff. And so basically, we're going to get into talking about what a lot of people, I'm sure, are curious as well as concerned about. Mm-hmm. Where's the money going in this market? What's happening? And it's going to be several different questions, I know. And I want folks that are chiming in, the folks that are watching, please be sure to go ahead and enter your questions in the comments, and we'll definitely get to them. But I have a ton of them myself. Uh-huh. Some of which we already talked about. We actually talked about the other day when I presented the issue with the young lady that had the issues going on. Mm-hmm. So what's happening in this market with, whole COVID-19 and, all that we know that's going on in the world? What's happening in the world of private lending as it relates to being able to qualify for funding?
Let me preface that question by giving you kind of an idea as to where private lending is at. And so I think that I'm going to answer your question, but in a different way. Okay. So private lending essentially private lenders today, post-COVID, and how I define post-COVID is March 13th. I believe March 13th was the day that President Trump issued the emergency stay-at-home orders and things of that sort. And so after March 13th, now everyone becomes, before March 13th, people were very antsy, very apprehensive and things of that sort. But after March 13th, things became very chaotic. So lenders typically fall within three categories. First category, some folks have just gone into business. And the reason why I say that is because it's hard to generate, if you can't generate capital and you still have operational expenses, you still have to maintain those operational expenses. So it's hard for some folks to be in business. So first category, a lot of folks have just gone to business. Doors are shut down, cell phones cut off, office numbers just deleted, which is unfortunate. Second category, a lot of folks have suspended lending. So they're still in business, but they've actually suspended all forms of lending. No matter how great of a borrower you are, whether you're Glenn Gasper or whether you're the guy off the street, you cannot obtain financing with this particular group. And these are some large organizations.
Yes.
These are organizations that I would have never thought that would have suspended lending. And if you'd asked me that 3 years ago, I was like, there's no way. These guys have balance sheets in the hundreds of millions of dollars, but they're suspended lending. And the third category falls within folks that are still open for business and they're still lending, but they've changed the way they're lending. Now they've increased their interest rates. They've decreased their loan to values. They've decreased their loan to costs. Essentially what they're doing is, even though that they're lending, they're wanting you to bring more money to closing, because if they're lending in a riskier market, they want to be compensated more for lending into this riskier market. Hence the reason why interest rates have increased, hence the reason why loan to values have decreased. So to kind of give you an idea, pre-COVID, loan to values were somewhere around 75% of ARV, 70 to 75%. That was kind of where we were at. Now it's typically around 60 to 65%. In some cases, very few folks are doing 70%. And so that's just a function of the market and the function of the apprehension that's attached to what's been going on with COVID. But yeah, that's essentially how that would look like as well.
Okay. So tell the folks now, of course, we talked about this again. Why has that ARV loan amount, why has that loan to cost changed? What's different? So what's the major difference now that you can explain to the folks, as opposed to what it was before? What's happened? Of course, we know COVID and all that, but what's changed in the market to cause those things to change?
Risk. It's nothing but the function of risk. And it's also the uncertainty of what the economy is going to look like. So lenders, specifically for, let's say, fix and flips or even rental loans, we can't dictate what a property has sold for. That's the data is what the data will be. However, and we cannot we can't foresee, I mean, we can forecast to a degree what properties will sell for in the future. But again, we can't really control that. That's, again, based off the data. So the way we manipulate our risk is by lowering the leverage. And what I mean by leverage is loan to values, loan to costs. So even though a lot of folks believe that property values may drop by, let's say, 5, 10, some believe 15%, we don't know that. That's a forecast. That's a projection. That's essentially an opinion. But what we can do to mitigate our risk is to lower the loan amounts and have folks bring a little bit more money, have more folks bring a little more skin in the game. So therefore, that makes us feel more comfortable as a whole. That's the biggest reason why. And again, guys, it's not a fact that I've had a lot of folks who really take it personally that
you don't like me.
You don't like me anymore. What happened to you? It's like, man, I thought we were cool. Like that, man. It's a business decision. I love you, man, but it's just it's a business decision. And many of the folks, especially like us, who are still lending, who are still active in the market, kind of fall within that category. It's a function of risk. Lending is essentially a function of leverage as well as risk.
Great stuff, man. Great stuff. And I guess to a degree, if anybody understands business, that would be understood. Right. I mean, now the risk is it's much riskier in a market where there's uncertainty. Like you said, we can predict what could possibly go on, and I'll be honest, me being conservative where I am right now, I'm thinking 15%. Right. And that's just being on a really conservative level. But again, like you said, who knows? So even from a conservative perspective, it's still a matter of how much risk, because that 15% could turn to 20%.
Yeah. And I'll hate to burst your bubble, but now most folks are going to want you to bring 20% as a down payment.
Yes.
The total project cost. And again, that's a function of risk. Many folks will do something as it's, okay, I want you to either bring 20% of the total project cost, or I'm going to lend at 60 to 65% of the ARV. And I'm going to do the lower of the two. So whatever number is the lower of the two, and again, we're speaking specifically for real estate for fix and flips. That's the loan amount. And whatever that number is, and you'll have to make up the difference when you bring to closing. Of course, you want to add closing costs and things of that sort as well.
Got it. And you're in this arena. I'm sure you've had conversations with other home lenders. And being one of the bigger players in the Southeast, your ears to the ground. Yeah. What would you say? What would you say some of the reasons is that some of the bigger lenders have shut their doors? Would you have an idea about that?
I know exactly why. The biggest reason,
I'm asking the right person.
The biggest reason why a lot of folks have either shut their doors, closed permanently, or they've just suspended lending is because lending is essentially private lending. The big folks, I'm not going to name their names. Some of the folks we collaborate with, some of the folks are competitors. But a lot of these larger groups, the way in which they would raise money is they would essentially get a credit line. They would originate loans against a credit line, and then they would pool those loans together. Then they would sell those loans to a much bigger player on Wall Street, whether it's a family office, a private equity firm, a hedge fund, an insurance company, a life company, whoever. And so that's essentially how the institutional players have been doing this for, I would say, about almost a decade now. That's how they've been maneuvering. So essentially, it's a function of get a credit line, originate against a credit line, sell the loans against it, and just keep rinse, wash, repeat, rinse, wash, repeat. What happened when post-COVID is now those larger buyers of debt, essentially, again, this is what we call the bond market to a degree. Those larger buyers of debt stopped buying. And so now these folks had no one to sell their paper, their debt to. And because of that, that's the reason why the first two categories exist. They've either shut their doors down or they've suspended lending altogether. That's the reason why. And again, the folks who are still buying debt, they've increased their interest rates. And as a result, us on the kind of on the retail side have to increase our interest rates as well.
Okay. So in essence, it's costing you more to sell to them, right? So you have to be compensated for that. Absolutely.
Exactly. Correct. Again, we still love our borrowers. Yeah. Again, I gotta keep repeating that. We got.
Look, you won't just give me some extra money because we homeboys.
I love you, bro, but I mean,
look, you can't feed the family off homeboys.
I can't feed the family off of hope. Can't feed the family. Bills got to be paid. Mortgages got to be taken care of. I wish I could, but I can't.
Absolutely. So. Now, would you say even the ones for those lenders who have shut their doors, obviously they have loans out in places, right? So obviously those loans are still being serviced, right?
Correct.
Is there a situation where they may have had assets on the books that either they haven't taken back through foreclosure and different things like that? Would you think that they'd have those assets on the books still that they'd be interested in selling?
Yeah, absolutely. They are selling those assets, but they'll sell those assets in very large tranches. So they'll sell them in like $5 or $10 million bundles to some other group, and they're going to have to sell them at par at some point as well. But yeah, they are selling them. It's hard to kind of get into that because they already have pre-approved buyers, and what those pre-approved buyers looks like are again the large private equity firms and the hedge funds and the family offices and the folks who can literally write a check to take that. I don't want to say it's not bad debt, but that debt off their books immediately.
And I imagine they might be selling at a discount.
Possibly, but it's not going to be that much of a discount because it's not bad debt as of yet.
Okay.
So typically, people will sell loans when it becomes bad debt. To determine how we define bad debt, it's typically 90 days delinquent. And most of the loans, if they closed, that's still good debt. They'll sell at maybe some type of a discount, maybe 5% of a discount, but it's not going to be something to where it's like 30 or 40.
Got it. Okay. So in a situation, so now, all right, now, and I want to make sure that, the folks that are watching that they are clear on these things.
Sure.
So for that debt, will that debt, or even though it's not bad debt, are bad debt yet?
Correct.
Are they selling the actual assets, or are they selling the notes?
They're selling the notes.
Got it. Okay.
They're still, obviously the investor owns the asset. They own the note. So they'll sell the note, and the investor essentially, it's almost as if the investor will just get a letter stating that your note has been sold to XYZ firm or so in next 30 days also.
Got it. So would any of them, now just to differentiate, and I want to make sure folks are understanding this, just to differentiate that they are selling the notes, which is selling the debt.
Correct.
Is there a chance that they've actually taken back properties that they still had on their books, that they may be selling the property, or they're just going to sell the debt to those as well? Well, they're taking back, so
yeah, they would have to foreclose on the property in order to get that property back. And so, assuming that if the investor who owns the property has defaulted on that debt, and that particular lender decided to foreclose on that property, at that point the lender could sell the property, because now the property is particularly the note. If the investor, let's say you or I, is current with their payments, there's nothing that they can do. Legally, they are bound to just sell the note, but they can't do anything to the property.
Got it. Okay. So, what if now in the mitigating risk, I guess, for the different for the different percentage rates and things like that, has there been a credit score requirement now? Okay.
Yes. So pre-COVID, private lending, again, if I can make a distinction, many people in the private money world don't like to be called hard money lenders. Technically, they're fungible. I mean, I understand why. And the reason for that is because, there's this debate. I know some people get mad at me when our firm is essentially a private money lending, but, in some cases you can equate us to a hard money lender as well. I personally don't like the term hard money lender, and the reason why is because we can offer rates at 4.25. I don't know of any hard money lender that, I guess, what we consider the true hard money lender to be able to offer those type of rates. That said, credit score requirements have definitely changed. Liquidity requirements have changed. Experience requirements have changed. To obtain a loan, essentially, those are the three factors that a lender is really going to look at: experience, credit, and liquidity. As far as credit, pre-COVID, we were okay. The industry typically was okay if you had a 600, 620 credit score. Now, to obtain a loan, most folks want you to have around a 650, preferably a 680, to get the best pricing of 700. And so essentially they're wanting borrowers who are just better credit quality borrowers. As far as liquidity, typically pre-COVID, I think a good rule of thumb is for someone to be able to show, not to bring, pre-COVID, 20% of the total project cost. Now, to show, you kind of want to have around 30%, because you're going to have to bring at least 20% as a down payment, plus closing costs. And then, of course, you got to start your money. You got to start the project. So a good rule of thumb is to have around 30% of the total project cost. Again, you're not going to bring all that to closing, but it's just good to kind of that's a good metric to use. And then lastly, experience. We at our firm, we don't necessarily require experience. However, there are a lot of lenders that have changed that model as well, whereas they want to see that you've done at least one deal over the last 24 months. And then there are some folks, again, these are some very large folks, they want to see that you've done 3 deals over the last 24 months. So they're looking at, they want the, how do I say this without sounding, the cream of the crop investor who's looking to get into the business, who's essentially, they are more of investing is a business for them as opposed to kind of a side, a hobby.
Got it.
Now, I know everything I just said can seem a little daunting to some folks. I do believe that those are temporary guidelines, and I have a feeling that that's going to ease up once we get COVID under control, once the numbers starting to flatten up. There have been conversations I've had with a lot of the folks in the capital markets. The general consensus is, and again, don't hold me to this and don't quote me on. Well, you can obviously I'm on video. But second quarter of this year, those guidelines are going to start to be loosening up a tad because people are going to start to feel a little more comfortable deploying capital.
We'll get a better hold on where things are going by that time. Okay, good stuff.
Very much so.
So in a market like, so for example, and I want to kind of, of course, this is, educational for all of us. Sure. So for the market post-COVID, or I'm sorry, pre-COVID, we were having an idea that the market is coming to a shift. Yeah. Right. Now, of course, we didn't think that it was going to, dive off the cliff like it did. Were there any plans pre-COVID to make adjustments in lending, could you say? And if so, to what degree?
Yes. And the reason for that is because no one knew, everyone expected a market correction to happen. Market corrections typically happen every 7 to 10 years. They're inevitable. No matter, you can literally take a graph and you can go back over the last 100 years and you can see on average things happen every 7 to 10 years where the market tends to correct or adjust. So we've been kind of preparing for that on our end as far as trying to focus on different type of asset classes to finance. And we've been kind of going after a different type of borrower also. And a lot of folks have started to do that as well. No one expected that there was going to be a worldwide pandemic to be the accelerant of the market crash. That was, if you would have told me that 6 months ago, I was like, I feel like I'm living in the beginning of a post-apocalyptic movie. Like, I'm the star. Like, we're all the stars, and like, I live in Midtown, and it looks like the movie I Am Legend, and it's just like dead. But folks did prepare for it to a degree. A lot of folks were starting to change their credit requirements and started to change their liquidity requirements and their experience requirements, even pre-COVID. It wasn't as aggressive as it is now, but folks were doing that. But then there are some folks who were kind of, they just thought the good times are going to roll. But I will say this: what's really surprised me about this entire thing, as far as from a private lending perspective, were the biggest thing is some of the bigger guys, the bigger lending companies that are out there, they've suspended lending, and they've either shut their doors down. But what's really impressed me is a lot of this kind of the mom and pop lenders, or the kind of the regional guys, they're still doing their thing.
Hanging in there. Yeah, they're
doing it. And the reason why is because they never really changed their model. Their model has been consistent from day one.
Right.
They typically lend at 60 to 65%. They want you to have 20 to 25% as a down payment. Yes, their interest rates are going to be a little higher. Yes, the origination is going to be a little higher as well. But the mom and pop lenders have been just kind of easing along because they understand the markets that they're in, and they haven't really changed anything. So although we're in a pandemic, they are kind of benefiting from it now because everyone's coming to them.
Got it. Okay. So you mentioned credit lines. Now, I understand there's different types of credit lines.
Yeah.
So there are lenders who borrow from other people and lenders who pool. Can you kind of, explain to the folks what those credit lines, what's the difference in those credit lines and what they look like?
Sure. So some lenders will get a credit line from, let's say XYZ lender will say, hey, I'll just use Bank of America. We need a $10 million credit line. Here's our balance sheet. Here's our experience. Here's our liquidity. Obviously, it's going to be secured by real estate. We're going to use this for the sole purpose of real estate investing. And so they'll use that credit line. They will originate essentially, let's say, $3 or $4 million in loans in a month or so. And then they'll take that $3 or $4 million in loans and then sell that off to Wall Street. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is they may just raise money on the private markets. They'll go to some high net worth investors. Hey, we need, we're going to have 10 people who can each put $500,000 in the pool. That's $5 million. And we want to be able to use that monies, and then we're going to get that money back to you over, let's say, a 12-month time frame. You're going to get a pretty decent return on your investment. Maybe they'll probably raise at 8%. They'll loan it out at 12%, so they're making that 4% spread there as well. But that's how one of two ways they can use a credit line. But typically, they're going to some type of bigger financial institution to obtain a credit line based off of their current balance sheet, based off their business plan, based off of their experience, based off their liquidity, and they're just drawing down on that line to originate loans. So therefore, they can just keep making loans. Again, rinse, wash, repeat. Credit line, originate, sell, and just keep repeating that process until something like this happens. Unfortunately.
So with that as an idea, with that as a concept and an understanding, what is the difference between what we like to hear as, so you were clear on why you like the difference in private lender as opposed to hard money. What would you say in that, with that idea of being able to draw money, what would you say conceptually is the biggest difference between what a private money lender is and a hard money lender?
So a hard money lender, and again, they're fungible. So it depends on your perspective in most part, like what you want it to be, what you want to be called. To me, a private lender is someone who is accessing the capital markets. They're institutionally backed. They are in the business of lending money, and their interest rates are going to be in many cases lower than a typical hard money lender. For example, a private lender their interest rates on a fix and flip could starting off at 9%. Most hard money lenders, their rates are not going to start at 9% because of the fact that the true hard money lenders, many times it's their own capital. It's their own money, or they've gone to like a couple of buddies that they know or a couple of folks that they know, and they've raised money that way. And so they have to get a higher yield because they are super connected to that capital, whether it's their own money or another person's money. Whereas the private lender who's institutionally backed and they can raise, let's say, $5, $10, $20, $30 million, they have measures in place in the event they have certain measures in place in order to, if something were to go awry. And so that's why they can, and of course, they're going to do some stuff on the back end. They're going to do some financial engineering where they can leverage their capital, in some cases, two or three times X, and they can mitigate their risk on that end as well. So the private lenders are, in many cases, are a little bit more sophisticated, whereas the hard money lenders, they're very just kind of, here it is. We're going to raise some capital. We're going to go out and deploy it as best as we can. So that's kind of the way I would kind of make that distinction.
Got it. Okay. Because, and of course the distinction has to be made in some cases to clear up the murkiness for some people. Because of course how it's presented in most cases, and I understand why you say it the way you are, because there is a significant difference in how you guys do things than other traditional hard money lenders. But what most people understand as private lending is, I'm going to Uncle Junior, and he got $1 million, and I want to, he's just gonna give me, give me the money to buy the house, and I pay it back when I feel like it, and that kind of thing.
You're right. And again, that particular, and that's what many people will consider true private lending. That person has a disposable amount of income or some available cash, but they're not really in the business of lending. They're doing it more so as an investment, but it's not like very structured. It's, hey, here's some money, do what you can, give it back to me in a certain time frame. Whereas private lending, alternative lending, that's a little bit more structured because it has to be. When those guys go out and raise money, they create funds. And with those funds, they're SEC regulated, and they're very, very structured because they have to be. There are a lot of eyeballs on the kind of the institutional guys, as opposed to Uncle Joe, as you said, or Uncle Jim, who's just going to give you some money to go buy a couple of houses. Right.
So I guess the difference probably would be described as a private investor and private lender.
Correct.
You probably kind of see the difference in those two.
That's good.
Makes sense. So we'll write the book on that. Look, of course. My little byline will probably be in the back of the book somewhere. You can write most of it.
I will try, man. I will try. I don't know how good it's going to be. Definitely try.
No, and I think the distinction in that is very important for some people to understand, because if they're being taught that they can raise private capital to buy real estate, they have to understand that if they're going to approach an individual who would potentially not be what they consider a accredited investor, they have to be careful in how they're approaching people and pooling those funds and things like that. So that's what, guys like you take those risks and sign all those documents, and the government watches y'all and all that stuff. So,
they do. Yeah.
So you take those risks so the little guys don't have to.
Exactly. That they do. That we do.
Right.
It's definitely that's absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I guess, and that's the major thing, that a lot of times when people get certain informations from different sources, they don't really dissect the whole piece, all the pieces that go into what makes all these things happen. That's why I always talk about education, and understanding how these things come together. So going forward, I guess we're now, we could potentially say we're post-COVID, since they open outside again.
Yeah. That's a whole other conversation.
I know, right?
That's God bless you.
We talked about that the other day. My barbershop is in my bathroom.
Likewise. God bless my hair for the last 5 years, man.
Right. So I didn't have to worry about that at all.
At all.
So going forward in the market, of course, we know that the interest rates and all the adjustments are going to change. With all of that in mind, and I guess I don't want to get ahead of you. I'll let you do the educating. With all of that being said, and we're transitioning into a new market. Would you, and you answered this question already, but I'm just going to repeat it. Would you say what's going to be the difference? Well, first, let me ask it this way. How long do you think? And this is, of course, from a lending perspective, and from a market knowledge perspective, you're much smarter than me. You do way more research than I do. From a perspective of how the market is shifting, how long? First question: do you think we'll be in a situation where the market's going to slump? And second question: how soon after that slump happens do you think lending will go back to what it once was?
So to answer your first question, the general consensus, it's going to take anywhere between 12 to 24 months to get out of this. And the reason for that is because this is the first time that I can think of in my lifetime, and just kind of thinking about it, and I would say almost ever, that there's been a cessation of business stoppage. I mean, essentially businesses have stopped.
Right.
And that's really harmful or hurtful to the economy. Currently, we have almost 22 million people more than 20 million people that have applied for unemployment. So that's going to be essentially something that is going to affect our economy, and specifically real estate investors. Let's just be honest. It will.
Absolutely.
Because, of course, a lot of those individuals who were once planning on buying a home now either have decided not to or just cannot. And we've actually had that happen where some folks have canceled their closings because they were furloughed or they lost their jobs. So the general consensus, again, don't hold me to this, but around 12 to 24 months because of just the stoppage of business. Right. And to answer your second question, it's my belief that the days of 10% down pre-COVID for fix and flips probably are not going to come back for a while. And because we have to get this out of our kind of our system, you've been in the game for a while, almost 20 years now, 20 plus years. I'm sorry.
Yes.
And so I believe that a lot of lending companies, ourselves included, are going to want you to bring a little more skin in the game. Typically, the days of 20% as a down payment, that's going to essentially be the case for a while. To define a while, maybe 12 months, maybe 18 months. Lenders have to get more comfortable with lending, and even more specifically, the back end borrowers of that debt have to become more comfortable with what they're buying, because a lot of the bigger players, they are tethered to what they can sell.
Definitely.
If they can't sell it, they're not going to originate it. And so that's kind of where I see the market is. What market has really been hit as far as from a lending perspective has been kind of the 30-year fixed rate market. That market has been decimated. And because of the uncertainty that COVID, from what COVID has brought on, to get a 5-1 ARM or a 30-year fixed loan on the private lending side is very, very difficult at this point. And because of that, a lot of the back end buyers, they are essentially not wanting to hold on to paper for 30 years because they have no idea what's going to happen in the next 2 or 3. And so that's kind of where we would be at as well.
Good. Yeah, I know, before our first crash in 2008, I had become what some would probably consider a money lending diva, a money borrowing diva.
Yeah.
Because, post 2000, pre 2008, it was guys that said, if you could fog up a mirror, I'll give you a loan.
I remember.
And I fogged up those mirrors so many times.
I remember. You got to take advantage. Take advantage of the market. That the market tells you can go out and get monies and be able to do it, and as long as you can do it in a very systematic and pragmatic way, then go for it. Because you can't. I tell people all day, like, you can't sit on the sidelines.
Definitely.
No matter what you're doing, if you're a real estate investor, sitting on the sidelines doesn't necessarily mean you have to go out and start buying as many things you can. Just think about being a little bit more prudent about what you're buying, because there are still, and I hate to use the word opportunity in this time because of all the things that are happening.
That's what it is.
But, I don't know of any other word to use.
Right.
I do think the investors who really kind of go out and look at deals can still make some pretty decent acquisitions from what they're buying as well.
Right. And and that I struggled with that for a while too, kid. I'll be honest. Using that word opportunity, even in ads and things that I got running, I'm like, man, do I say opportunity?
Yeah.
Like,
you can find another word.
I was thinking of something else to say, but it is what it is. And however unfortunate, I was having a conversation with some of my colleagues a few days ago, talking about different markets where so many people have passed away. And potentially going to continue to pass away that probably have had properties. Who knows what the probate business is going to look like then? And who knows, even if they weren't, the homeowner, excuse me, some of them might have been the primary breadwinner. And even in situations like that where the landlord was expecting the money. So it's a trickle down up effect all across the board. So in and of all of that happening, while we don't want to take it, we want to, and then they take advantage. That's a whole, I'm really going to throw that out the window. While we don't want to call it that, it is opportunity. And I look at it this way. And I guess the best way to look at it, in my opinion, is opportunities to help people.
Okay, good.
Right. Because there will be people faced with situations, many of them will be investors who will now have properties that are no longer being serviced by the people who were paying rent. So they're going to have to relinquish some of those, those properties and things like that. So while it's opportunity, there's nobody's afraid of hurting anybody's feelings on the Wall Street market, because we're taking advantage of the opportunity. American Airlines stock is at $10 now.
It's been hurt.
We don't care that I fly it as much as they were before. That stock.
He feels, good morning. They're not. They're staying at home.
So so it is what it is, and I guess just from a perspective of nice guys, let's try to be nice guys and not call it opportunity. We can't skate what truly is happening, and again, I look at it as ways that those of us that are involved in this, we have the ability and have the opportunity to help, because those folks will be faced with situations, where they don't know that a short sale is an option. Right. They're like, oh, I can't pay my mortgage anymore. I'm just going to walk away and let it foreclose. So we'll be able to be in positions to help them understand that this is an option for you, where you can save your credit, and potentially when everything clears up, you can go right back and buy a house again. So it's opportunities to help people. I'll look at it. So from a lending perspective, again, another question I have is, and I know that the risk factor is much higher, right? Yeah. Are you looking out as far as what those fix and flippers are going to be doing to be able to sell those properties on the back end? I mean, I imagine you're looking that far out as well, right?
Yes. So what we're looking at now, if you were to go to a lender and you say, hey, look, I want to buy this property, renovate it, and then hold on to it, essentially apply the BRRRR method, that may not be as attractive now because of the 30-year mortgage. Kind of that particular market has been decimated, unless you're going to go to a traditional bank to refinance out of the private money or hard money loan that you're in. Right. So we are looking at kind of the exit strategy of some fix and flipper for a lot of fix and flippers now, if they don't have a pretty decent track record. Now, if you're Glenn Gasper and you come to us and you say, okay, I want to do this, then obviously we're going to trust you because you've done hundreds of deals. So you've been involved in those things. But if you're the new guy,
I heard what he said, right? I heard what he said. I got witnesses.
But if you're a new guy and a new gal who's come to the market and is looking to buy a property and you want to hold on to it and rent it out, that may be a little bit of a challenge in this market. What we're doing is we're telling folks, hey, look, you may want to kind of hold off on the 30-year mortgage note if you're going the private route. Obviously, people like to refinance into a private lender with a private lender on a 30-year mortgage because of there's not a lot of paperwork compared to a traditional bank. There's a lot more there's a good number of advantages if you were to go through a private lender. And again, this is why I do not call ourselves hard money, because obviously we offer other things than just a traditional hard money lender. So there are things that we're going to take a look at, and if we would prefer for your answer to be, I just want to sell this property in this market. Now, my answer to your question will change in the next 2 or 3 months because of what's going on in the market. But as of today, my preference would be for you to buy a property and then hopefully sell it. But if you're going to hold on to it, that's fine. But we are going to be a little more critical. And the reason why is because when you refinance that property and now you are a landlord, who are going to be your tenants?
Right.
Will your tenants have jobs? Funny thing about this, and I know I want to go a little bit more deeper into this. We are now, some lenders are looking at the occupations of the tenants that you plan on putting into this property. The individual who is let's say a guy or a gal was working at AMC Theaters is going to be a tenant. Let's say even that middle manager, they're making $50,000 or $60,000 a year. That's good income. But to us, the person who's, let's say, considered a consensual worker, even if they're working at, say, a grocery store, let's even say someone working at the post office, they're going to be a little bit more attractive to us as one of your tenants, as opposed to somebody who's in a business that's more kind of entertainment based or is in a non-essential business. Because the non-essential business, we have no idea when that industry is going to come back. It's going to come back. But we'd rather kind of put our eggs into the person who's going to have tenants where they're essential businesses, as opposed to who've tended to that as well. That's one of the other reasons why lenders are kind of wanting to kind of now understand who will be your tenant if you plan on holding on to this property for a significant amount of time.
Yeah, and the other idea I had also is like, who's going to be the person that buys this property?
Yeah,
from a fix and flip perspective, like if I were to buy a property today and fix it up nicely, and I'm estimating, this is another question that I'm sure you can help us understand. I'm buying it today to fix it up, but I'm basing the future ARV based on what's I say the future ARV meaning 3 to 6 months from now. Basing that on what sold in the last 3 to 6 months. I'm sure those numbers are going to get, changed, significantly. So, and I want you to address that, but also the thing that I want to make sure folks will get, like, from a fix and flip perspective, what occupation are people that are going to be buying these houses now? What are they What are they going to be in? I mean, our lenders, like even from most recently, I think it was Chase Bank and a couple other people changed their lending guidelines where now you have to have a 700 plus credit score. First of all, with people losing jobs and things going sideways, that buying pool is going to significantly shrink.
Yeah.
You know, but go. I don't get into too many things at once. But I do want you to address how you're looking at what those values will be in the future, and I know that's why the risk of lowering the loan amount is happening. But is there anything else that we as fix and flippers need to be paying attention to when we go and buy these properties and expecting the values to be, in the future, 3 to 6 months now, what they were 3 to 6 months prior?
Yeah, so that's one question that we've been kind of flirting around with in our industry as well, because we can't project what price points will be in the next 3 to 6 months. We can, of course, we'll forecast to a degree, and we'll probably say, let's assume there's going to be a 10% decline in pricing. Maybe it'd be a 15% decline in pricing. We just don't know. So that's one of the major reasons why we decreased our loan to cost and loan to values. We want folks to bring a little bit more skin in the game. That said, properties are still going to be sold, and we are encouraging folks to be a lot more anal with their rehab budgets. Because right now, what's going on is when you put a property on the market, you need to be able to put the best property you can put on the market. The finishes have to be outstanding. Absolutely. Because the pool of buyers is shrinking. Yes. And so now you're competing for a smaller pool of buyers. Now it's not going to be significant, whereas it's going to be like 30% less or so, but it is going to be enough to whereas your property really, really has to stand out. So what we're doing on our end, in addition to reducing cash, increasing cash to closes, was we're also kind of getting folks we're sending out rehab inspectors to review the budgets that they put together to make certain that they can rehab this property to the level that we believe that they can sell it for. And so we don't want you to just throw in a budget and then it essentially becomes a disservice to you. We underfund it, or you don't have XYZ here, XYZ there. You need to put together the best budget possible because you need to be able to put the best product out there to attract a small, I wouldn't say not that much smaller, but it is going to be a little smaller pool of borrowers. Your property has to stand out. So that's another way where we're kind of trying to mitigate as much risk as possible. And again, it will hopefully, prayerfully, it will work.
What would you say about new construction? I mean, how big of a difference is that going to be now, you think?
New construction is taking a hit as well. New construction, what we're doing now, many lenders will not finance a deal for you if you do not have new construction experience post-COVID. If you are a newbie and if you've never done a new construction deal, let's say, or if you've done less than 3 renovation deals, then you are very risky. Because new construction is a different type of investing. It's a different methodology. Obviously, there's just differences that you have to kind of focus on. And so we, in our firm, we want to see someone have completed at least 2 new construction deals projects over the last 24 months. And many lenders have stopped doing new construction for that reason. The folks that are doing that are kind of more institutionally backed. And so they don't mind taking on the risk that new construction does present. And some people will say, well, new construction is simpler than is a little simpler than a typical renovation project. But then there's another argument to that as well. But new construction definitely is taking a hit. A lot of lenders are not doing it at this point. They don't want to take that risk on. To kind of give you another idea as well, the projects that a lot of folks want to focus on from a lending perspective are the ones where you're not adding any square footage. You're essentially repurposing the existing square footage, and you're able to add value in that way. That will get to catch a lender's attention a lot more than a project where you plan on adding like 1,000 square feet or so. Right. And the reason is because of the permitting offices, and there's just so many more hurdles that you have to go through when you have to add significant square footage to obtain that value.
Good stuff, man. You're dropping some major bombs on us today, man. I mean, and these are things that I'm glad you came on, because these are things that I think a lot of people that are either have been investing for some time or either just getting started. A lot of information that you're sharing is very important. That going in, most people wouldn't have a clue. Unless they really, because most people they don't really educate themselves about doing this stuff.
Tell me about it.
But it's very important to be able to share this information. And I thank you so much for, for doing this, because these are the things that people really need to be paying attention to when they're getting into the business of real estate investing without properly knowing what to expect.
Yeah.
Now I have people calling, and I still service, unsecured funding for some people, and they want to get into fixing and flipping. And I'm like, okay, that's okay, but you want to be sure you're in a position to be able to, survive what's potentially going to be happening in the next few months as this market shifts. So buying right on the front end is definitely going to be important. I'm going to ask a question, and I haven't seen anybody else ask any questions. I was hoping we would have some more people ask questions. But this is a question that's probably going to wake a lot of the people up if they're wholesalers watching. They're probably going to boycott the show after I ask this question. So I know there has been some time where we've seen wholesalers. Now, of course, I say wholesaling in this market is still going to be work. It's still going to work. Yeah. It's probably going to be the go-to way of being able to generate income for a lot of the people who do it right.
Yeah.
So in times past, I know that you've seen loans come through where a wholesaler is making $300,000. Okay.
I actually had a commercial deal where someone was, I'll talk about it offline, but it was very close to that number. That's a true story. Yeah.
True story? Are you serious?
True story. Yeah.
So wholesalers are making a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
For those that work hard to earn the money, I don't have a problem with it. But the question I have for you is, now, of course, there were some ideas. I mean, tell us pre-COVID what some of the things that you looked out for loans, because I know that was something you mentioned before.
Sure.
So is there going to be a significant difference post-COVID where I'm smart enough to negotiate on the front end with this seller to buy this property at a certain price, and I'm smart enough to put the work in to sell it to a buyer on the back end, and I make $10,000? Is there a cutoff? Well, tell us pre-COVID and tell us post-COVID what's going to be the difference in those types of situations.
So it depends. It depends on what type of lender you're working with. And this is going to be a long-winded answer, but I think it's definitely needed.
That's why I said they go boycott the show.
No, so let me first say, I believe wholesaling is a beautiful business if it's done correctly. It's essentially a marketing business. It's beautiful because essentially if you're able to find properties at a discount and you can find buyers who are looking to buy properties, obviously, and you marry the two, it's a beautiful business. We've got a lot of wholesaler friends, a lot of wholesaler clients, and it's a beautiful business. That said, pre-COVID, if you were working with a institutionally backed lender, many times that institutionally backed lender had a 20% cap on a wholesale fee. What I mean by that is they typically did not want you to pay more than the end buyer to pay more than 20% of the wholesale fee. So, for example, if you're a wholesaler and you buy it from, let's say, Mrs. Johnson at $80,000, and now you're trying to sell it to, let's say, Glenn at $100,000, you've gone past that 20% cap because you're 20% of the $80,000. So they were maxing your fee at $16,000. They didn't want you to make more than $16,000, so they wanted you to bring the sales price at $96,000, or they will still do the loan, but they'll just have the end buyer bring $4,000 more to pay your fee. So that's how it worked post-COVID. Now, that wasn't heavily policed.
Yeah.
Some folks were essentially, okay, sure, no problem. Many times, if the property's as-is value is equal to the purchase price and your wholesale fee, we're fine with that. So if you're selling to the borrower, and let's say you're selling it to them at $100,000, but we believe the as-is value of the property is $100,000, whatever your wholesale fee is, that's fine. But you have to be very aware of who your end buyer and who they're using for financing, because now post-COVID, they're going to be even more anal about that 20% rule. I can assure you of that. And the reason, again, I keep saying this, those large institutional buyers who have tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, they're still tethered to the people who they sell debt to.
Right.
And the people who they sell debt to, they don't see Glenn Gasper. They don't see the wholesaler who's just, who's doing everything he can. He's marketing, he's knocking on doors, he's driving for dollars. They don't see that. They just see another fee that they are essentially buying. And now multiply that by thousands of loans.
Right.
This is a way for them to essentially shave off money and get a discount on a deal. It's nothing personal. They don't see this. They don't see the folks putting out flyers and sending out thousands of dollars in mailers every month. They don't see, and I hate to say it, and this is going to sound crass, they don't care. Right. They're looking at the bottom line. So you really got to be careful, and it's a good practice for wholesalers to ask your end buyer, hey, by the way, who's your lender? Yeah. Because now you can determine if you want to move forward or not with this end buyer. My thing to wholesalers who are probably, it's always good to have cash buyers. Obviously, there's no kind of restrictions there, but it's just good it's a good practice because that 20% rule post-COVID is going to get even more enforced once some of these larger players start to come back in line. And there are some lenders here in town that do not finance wholesale fees. They essentially want the buyer to pay the entirety of the wholesale fee. Wow. And so you just got to be aware of that as well. So the I know it's a long-winded answer, but the true answer is it depends. It depends on who your end buyer is. And end buyer's financing it is coming from.
Right. No, but listen, you answered that question very, very good. Of course, you did, but I want to say that it clears up, and I had some ideas about that. Yeah. But I think if any wholesalers that are watching and paying attention to the answer that you gave, it clears up a lot of the things that most of them, I'm sure, did not understand. Yeah. Because many a times the question was asked to me, why does the lender care how much I'm making? Yeah. Right. Because I would say if I'm buying the property from you, I don't care how much you make. Correct. Right. But the lender, it makes sense for them to know that, listen, if I got to package this and sell it to somebody else and I have to justify this $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 fee that just happens to be a fee for, who knows, somebody, drinking a glass of water. You know what I mean? Like, what am I paying these people $20,000 extra for? Yeah. And as you said, after that multiplies so many times, it does kind of, bring about a little bit of an extra risk, not knowing what that money is being used for, So, I mean,
if I give another reason, another reason why that particular model is going to be heavily policed post-COVID. Typically, when lenders tend to see large wholesale fees, those historically have been the biggest. Those have been the largest delinquencies and the biggest defaults, because typically those transactions are done with, if not first-time investors, maybe someone who's done maybe 2 deals. And so you factor in that large wholesale fee, and you factor in someone who's kind of a novice. And so that person, after time, they essentially get worn out because they've got to still rehab this property. They've got to put on the market. They've got to sell it. There's a lot of holding costs there. So historically, those have been the largest delinquencies as well. So they're looking at those 2 items. And that's one of the reasons why that 20% rule is going to be even more policed than it will ever be before, because they're trying to prevent that from happening.
Great stuff. And again, I mean, I have to agree with you 100%, because a lot of times when people buy and they pay those significant wholesale fees, oftentimes they don't have the experience to have first analyzed that property properly in the beginning to know if that wholesale fee can be justified. Yeah. So, I mean, it makes absolute sense. I don't like it, but I like it.
Hey, I don't make the rules. I just
No, but that's definitely good to know. That's definitely, and for me, if I were in a situation like that, like for me, I always tell any of my students that, you have to make it a win-win-win situation. Correct. And that's a win for the seller, a win for yourself, and a win for the buyer. There are some people and some teachers who tell people to have a set wholesale fee for every deal. your wholesale fee should be $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for every deal. Right. I came from a mindset before learning from Carlton Sheets years ago that if I didn't make $20,000 to $30,000 on a deal, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That was in my opinion, from a scarcity mentality, because there was lots of $5,000 deals that I didn't even pay attention to.
Yeah.
Right. So it was from a greed and a scarcity mentality. So now, where things have changed, and see, I have that mentality because I thought nothing was going to ever change.
Yeah.
Right. That was when I first started. Yeah. It's going to be great. It's going to always be great. I'll never have to worry about it. Yeah. That was pre Mr. Dollar out of a dime.
Yeah.
I'll take those dimes to make those dollars.
You're right.
So from that perspective, like I said, there's so many people that are learning the wrong way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That if it's not making them $10,000, it's not a good deal.
Yeah.
And so how they justify that $10,000 is they do not negotiate properly on the front end.
Yeah.
And then they tack on that $10,000 just to make it so that they can make that $10,000 without making a win for the seller.
Yeah.
And then a win for the buyer, because now it's nobody's fault that the buyer doesn't know how to buy, right?
Yeah.
It's really nobody's fault, unfortunately, that if you don't have an educated buyer. But what is unfortunate is that although you may have an uneducated buyer, if you don't help them buy right to a degree, and I'm not saying, give away your money, but I'm saying to educate them at least enough to make them come back to buy from you again. Mm-hmm. If you rob them the first time, they're not going to have anybody to come back and buy from you again. If you keep them right, in the end, they will be your ongoing buyer. You see what I mean? So, and hopefully that's some knowledge and education for somebody that's paying attention to this. Yeah. I do have a question that somebody, look at here. She actually put a question in here. Beatrice asked, and we're gonna probably be wrapping up here in just a minute. Sure. She says, are there areas that hard money lenders are staying away from post-COVID?
Yes and no. Mm-hmm. To full disclosure, we've had some of our warehouse lines and capital lines, warehouse lines and credit lines suspended because of COVID, but we're working through it, and we're working with capital partners to get that done. One of the capital partners we're working with, and this is a funny story, but we were trying to do this deal, and I love T.I. the rapper, but I guess the property literally is right in front of his Club Crucial. So I get a call one day, and I was like, "Hey, look, you ever heard of Club Crucial?" I was like, yeah, it's a great club. I've never been there. I'm not a club guy, as you can see. Do I look like I'm going to go to a club? I guess in some respects it just kind of alarmed them that it was literally right in front of a parking lot of a nightclub. Mm. But for the most part, most private money, hard money lenders want to stay within what we call MSAs, metropolitan state statistical areas, Atlanta. Most folks are going to lend in the city or in even Metro Atlanta. Now, if you're trying to do a deal in, let's say, Macon, we're doing a deal right now in Thomaston, Georgia. Many hard money lenders are not going to want to do deals in those locations because they're smaller markets, especially post-COVID. And they still will, but you just got to kind of have that conversation with them. And the reason for that is because hard money lenders, private money lenders, they have a specific, in many cases, a finite amount of capital at a certain period of time. Mm-hmm. And their goal is to deploy that finite amount of capital. And again, in that certain amount of time, to the best projects that they can invest in. And so they'd rather invest in a project in, let's say, metropolitan Atlanta than, let's say, Warner Robins, Georgia. Nothing wrong with Warner Robins, Georgia, but I know that there are a much bigger pool of buyers. There's a lot more employment in Atlanta than Warner Robins. There's just a lot more activity here than there would be in kind of a smaller market. So smaller markets are going to be, in my opinion, even really hurt post-COVID for at least a foreseeable future, maybe in the next 6 to 12 months. And if you are investing in smaller markets, some lenders may want you to bring even more liquidity because it's even a bigger risk, because you get a lender is always looking at if this property forecloses, how do I get out of it?
Right.
And so that's one of the first things that we're looking at. How do we get out of this asset if it forecloses? If I'm in, let's say even Albany, Georgia, that's God bless them with what they're going through right now. That totally, no, it sucks. But we're going to find, of course, Atlanta more attractive than Albany or some of the other smaller markets. But if you're in a major metropolitan city, from our perspective, that hasn't really been the case as of yet. As long as you have a good deal.
Okay, good. Okay, good stuff. All right, yeah. No, I'm not going to buy property in front of Club Crucial unless it's unless I know I'm going to be looking for the end buyer before. Like, y'all want to go to the club? It's across the street. Just stay for the house. We good.
Somebody's going to buy that property.
Right.
And have
Man, Thomaston, Georgia. It's like 5 people in Thomaston, isn't it?
Yeah. So we've got an apartment complex that we're actually closing tomorrow.
Okay.
That's interesting. I honestly, full disclosure, I've never heard of Thomaston, Georgia until I started. Until we started working on that deal. So
really.
Yeah, but great town from what I hear. Have never been to it. Probably have to go make a trip down there one of these days.
Okay. Yeah, actually, one of the first places I went to when I came to visit Georgia back in '94, before I moved here in 2000, was Thomaston, Georgia.
Really?
Yeah. And
how did you end up there?
It was. I'm talking about. It was a ghost town. Like, if you ever watched Little House on the Prairie.
I have. I wasn't ready for that one.
Right.
Wow,
that's what it looked like. I'm talking about even what's the other Dukes of Hazzard? You ever see Dukes of Hazzard?
Yeah. That was actually shot in Covington, Georgia, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it was.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about.
I'll give you Dukes of Hazzard, but I wasn't ready for Little House on the Prairie.
I'm talking about. I literally drove by some places out there where they had wells in the front yard. Yeah, they had wells. I'm like, wow, what is this? Where am I going to? Like, where's the big city? Shatima's watching, or I'm sorry, Broker Shatima is watching. Thank you for watching. She says,
hey, Shatima, how are you?
She says, this is great. Thank you for joining us. One stop sign, one light, Beatrice. But listen, hey, Ken, listen, thank you so much, man. You've shedded some light on quite a bit of the stuff that we needed to understand about what's happening in the real estate world in general, specifically lending, but in the real estate world in general, you shed some, great light on some of the things that we need to be paying attention to. For those of us that still plan to stay in the business, there's a lot of people exiting because of the fear of what's soon to happen, possibly. But again, like you said, we don't know.
Yeah.
And I think, for the most part, those people that are probably going to be exiting are the ones that have not experienced something like this before.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's been a good run. They've had a good run.
It's been a great run. Yeah. It's been a great run.
I guess I'll say a good, at least 10 years, 7, 8 years. They've had a good run, Good, congratulations.
It's been a good run for some folks.
But I still think like I said, there's going to be many, many opportunities that are going to come, opportunities again to help folks. And for those of us who have the knowledge and education to be able to withstand, what's yet to come. I mean, like, people are afraid now, but we don't even know. We don't even know what's coming. Like, y'all probably going to be like, we're only loaning 10%. Gotta be 90% to closing.
That may happen. I don't see it as well, but that may happen. But first of all, I want to thank you for having me. I always have I love your energy. I just love what you're doing, and whatever we can do to support, by all means, just let me know. I always want to just let people know. Number one, our country works off of debt, and I wouldn't be in business if we didn't provide some type of debt. One man's debt is another man's asset.
Definitely.
And no matter what's going to happen, we realize that there are going to be investors that do exit out of the market, and that's okay. But I to tell people, it wouldn't be prudent on my part to tell someone not to exit out of the market, because the market has to correct. The people who exit out are the ones who didn't prepare for this.
Yes.
And so the people who will stay in the game are the ones who are going to do very well once they come out of it, because they're going to be bigger, they're going to be stronger, not bigger, hopefully not bigger. I mean, staying inside, we'll see. But they're going to be stronger. They're going to be more. They're going to have. They're going to go through this, and they're going to have a little more experience. They understand that this is how market works. This is a correction. This is what it feels like. It sucks at some point, but you have to understand that it's coming. And so people have to understand that the denominator, the denominator of real estate investing is you are an investor. Yes. And as an investor, you have to make certain that, the common denominator is that you are an investor. And as that, you have to understand that there are market cycles, and this is just one of them that you're living through. So definitely go out there, get as much education as you can. And this is an opportunity for people to really just try to understand what's going on in the market and just learn. I'm really big on education. And I know you are as well. I'm a reader. I know you are a reader as well. So read some books, try to get yourself in better situations, keep watching programs and events like this to kind of come out of this a much better investor, because that's essentially what you are. You're an investor. And I can only just leave people just keep going. You can't stop. It doesn't make any sense for people to just stop.
And and the one thing I want to leave folks with is that this is going to hurt everybody.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to hurt everybody. Now, there's different levels. Yeah. Of course, there's different levels of hurt, but it's going to hurt everybody. We were watching, me and my wife were watching Rocky Balboa the other day, the movie Rocky Balboa, and I was telling her about the quote that he said, that it's not how hard you can hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep on going. You know what I mean? So all of us are going to take the hits. Lending is probably going to be there's going to be a slowdown on lending. Yeah, there's going to be a slowdown on buying. So all of us are going to take the hits. But it's a matter of, like we did before in that 2008 situation, it's a matter of those that can take that hit and still say 10, 15, 20 years from now, I experienced that and I'm still here.
Correct.
So, just look at it like that. Some people will get afraid because things will start looking bad because they've ridden that wave for so long, and now that wave is coming down. But if you stick in it, that wave is going to eventually go back up,
Exactly.
Maybe 12 to 24 months from now. So, might have to have some hot dogs or pork and beans for a little while, but
hey, whatever it takes.
Right. But if you're a real life real estate investor, as I like to say, you'll stay in it and, keep on rolling.
And this is definitely real life. So,
Ken, listen, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know you got, a ton of more loans to go and close, and y'all heard him say that I can get all the money I want for free. And
I don't know if I said that, but
they didn't say that. But this has been very educational for me, and of course, I'm going to definitely share this with quite a few more folks. And listen, keep on doing what you're doing, man. I salute you. My hat goes off to you. You're a major educator. I mean, and that's what I want folks to get is not only do you lend money, but you actually have a program where you teach people how to borrow money.
That's correct.
So tell us a little bit about that before you go, and how can folks get in contact with you if they want to, get money to, get started in real estate?
Sure. No, absolutely. Thank you for that. So one of the things we realized when we came in, we realized that a lot of folks were just completely just not aware as to how private money works. And so we understood that we realized also there's just a lot of misinformation and just a lot of false narratives. And there's a lot of just, wrong things said about our industry. So we created a course where we teach people how to use private money the right way. And so the course is essentially provided in two ways. We'll do a free course once a month. We typically do it at our office in downtown Atlanta. And then we also do a CE course. So we'll share with realtors how to kind of use private money. We'll talk about rental loans. We'll talk about fix and flip loans. We'll talk about new construction loans. We do a deep dive into all of those products. And we just want to kind of demystify this world of private money. And so we're really, really proud of that. We've been doing it for about 2 years because we like to see people really understand how this stuff works. And the way to people get in touch with me, you can obviously go to our website, www.bakercollins.com. You can call me at phone number 404-890-0569. That's my direct cell number. And you can email me as well, kigwe@bakercollins.com, and I'll probably put in the chat message as well. So, that's how you can get a hold of us. If not me or someone on our staff, my team, we'll get back to you and just kind of share with you kind of how we work. And I'm excited to share with you as well. We set up if you go to getthedealfunded.com / and I may get this wrong, /rehab, we're going to give you our free ebook as well, which kind of outlines how to use private money also. I have to get the exact URL for that. Getthedealfunded.com, and you can go get our /rehab, I believe, and it'll let you download our free ebook that we created for our investors.
Okay, I think we have it here. Getthedealfunded.com /rehab.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So we have that on the screen here, so folks can actually take a look at that. But listen, again, thank you, sir. This has been great stuff. And listen, it's the great measure of a man who has the patience to deal with somebody who don't know what they're doing technologically.
It's all good, man. It's all good. We
didn't wait on me to get this thing fixed after 30 minutes.
You gotta work. It's real life.
Yes, indeed.
Real life.
So, Brother Ken, thank you so much, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. Much health and blessings to you and your family.
Thank you.
Again, thank you again. And I look forward to, having you come on again, man, because you shared, definitely we're going to probably need something like this on a consistent basis so folks can understand the things that are changing in the market. So we'll definitely be reaching out to you again.
I love it. I love it. Just let me know. I'm here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, this has been the Real Life Real Estate Investing Show, where we talk about real life real estate situations, but we bring you real life real estate solutions. Thank y'all for tuning in. We got the top dog in the business coming on with us next week. Mr. Ramon Tooks is going to be with us next Wednesday. So make sure y'all tune in and check that out. All right, Ken, thanks again, man. Have a great day. We'll be talking to you soon.